Fish freaks, welcome to podcast episode number 82 of the Kayak Fishing Obsessed live show, brought to you by Wendell Fishing. If you guys haven't checked it out, head over to wendellfishing.com, see what it has to offer. Also create another website this weekend, kayakfishingobsessed.com. So I'd love for you to head over there. It'll show you all the places that this podcast streams. But that aside, guys, I'm excited tonight because I have Dalton Albright, freaking donkey slayer, down in Florida in the show tonight. And we're going to be just talking how to use forward-facing sonar to pick them up. So if you were like, hey, anti-scoper, this is probably not the show for you. But if you're like, hey, been thinking about it, this might be for me, this is going to be the show for you, because he has dialed this in and he is catching absolute giants. Dalton, welcome to the show, brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is I'm trying. I almost missed the intro because one of my subscribers asked me, Wendell, will you have my babies in the in the comment section? So I'm like, well, yeah, sure. What's their name? And they wrote back, said Angel, because if it's a girl and it was conceived by us, it'd be nothing short of an angel. And I almost didn't recover from that. I almost missed the intro. So here we are, folks. You never know. You never know what you're going to get. Oh my gosh. Woo! Well, Dalton, I talked to you for maybe a total of 15 seconds in my life. You hopped on, shoved you into the green room after asking you one question. That question was, how many podcasts have you been on? You're like, hey, this is my first. I'm like, you know what? This is freaking awesome. I don't know how this is your first, because you were putting up some stupid fish. You're a freak of nature, putting up freaks of nature. I got some photos I just want to share. Well, let's get it. I didn't even give you a chance to talk yet. I just want to share some of these monsters that you've been catching. So here we go. I pulled these from the Catch 22 KBF web board, tournament board. And this is like a 25. Oh my gosh. 25 incher. 25 incher. This is all this past year. Another 25, freaking, then you calm down a little bit with 24.75. And I looked at the top. I looked at this leaderboard. Your top 22 fish, they're all over 24 inches.
Yeah.
Insane. So before we get into all that, how you do it, right? We're going to get into all that. How you dial this in. I got to get this picture off my screen. We'll get to all that in a minute. We'll get into the details. We'll peel back the layer of the onion. But where are you at right now? And how did you get into kayak fishing? You're a pretty young guy. You said you just got done with class. So what are you doing down there in Florida?
So I'm in West Central Florida, and I'm in college right now. I'm 22. So I've just been, working on classes and fishing whenever I can.
Heck yeah, you are. Whenever you can seems to be like all the time. If you're putting up those bass, my gosh, my personal best is like 22.75. So looking at some of those were just stupid. So how'd you get into kayak fishing?
So I've been fishing my whole life pretty much, but as far as kayak fishing, I got my first kayak in 9th grade. It was a $200 Sun Dolphin sit-in kayak.
Heck yeah.
And that's how I learned how to kayak fish.
I love it. I have a Sun Dolphin. Aruba 10 is the one I have, literally sitting out. It's my throw and go. So I have these lakes down in southern Ohio, and when I don't want to drag around my Bonafide, I throw that in the back of a truck. Or if I'm going to work, a lot of times if I'm on like a work trip, I'll get a rental car and that thing will fit in there because it's only 10 feet long. And I get to fish all of these different places. So love having that throw and go. So you started out with an Aruba 10. When did you upgrade? What'd you upgrade to?
I upgraded to my current kayak, which is a 10-foot native Slayer Propel.
Okay.
I'm planning on upgrading again though soon. So I'm excited. I don't know what I'm getting yet, but
it's so funny because you said you had a Sun Dolphin. I got a Sun Dolphin. I didn't realize this. Native Slayer Propel 10. I have a Native Slayer Propel 10. Loved it. That was my first pedal drive kayak. And then I upgraded to the Bonafide P127, which still keeps, for those of you who don't follow along, it still keeps that that propel drive. And so Big Adventures owns native and Bonafide, and that propel drive, which is bulletproof aluminum propel drive, was just freaking sweet. I love it. Are on both of these kayaks, even though they're separate brands. What do you plan on upgrading to?
I'm not sure yet. I kind of like that that native Titan.
Okay.
I think it's called the 10.5, I think. I like that one a lot.
You're gonna stay in the native family.
Yeah, I just need something a little bit bigger because I won the Torpedo tournament, so I need something to put that on.
Okay. So you say you won the Torpedo tournament? Oh, the top 10.
Yeah, the top 10. Yeah.
Yeah. I literally was listening through some of the comments when I posted that you're going to be on tonight, and there's some guys who posted something and then they deleted it for one reason. It wasn't a bad post, but they essentially were like, "Hey, I was going to get into some of these tournaments, and when I see Dalton's name in there, they're like, nope, not fishing that tournament because it's not like you're catching a few here and there. You're putting up 110 inches plus a month.
Yeah.
Typically. What's your largest 5 fish for the month? What was your best month past year?
This past year it was 122.75.
Oh my gosh. I'm a bit jealous. I had my best month of the year and it was 107.75 here in Ohio. 122. Congratulations. Right?
Thank you.
You just don't go out there and accidentally catch 122 inches of across 5 bass. So you're doing something right. Sly Fox Fishing says, Dalton, you need a Bonafide to get hooked up and fully rigged XTR 130. But it sounds like
I'll have to look into it.
Are you keeping the 10 feet or that isn't tight nets? Like he's like 12, isn't it?
I'm not too worried about the length. That's just the one I was looking at.
Okay.
It doesn't. I just got a trailer recently, so it can be however big I want it to be.
Nice. Well, you're in class. Where in the world do you store all this stuff?
I live with my mom still, so just in the garage.
Heck yeah. I love it. All right. So tonight we're going to be talking about forward-facing sonar. When I asked you to come on, I was like, I got to have this guy on. I got to see what he's using, what he's throwing, how he's utilizing forward-facing sonar, when he is, when he isn't, and all the nuances. So this was really a discovery of, for those of you out there, you're like, hey, I don't have it. And you got through all of the debate about whether or not it's good or bad for the industry. And you're like, you know what? I think I might just enter into this. So I have a bunch of questions I've been thinking about over the last couple of days. And I'm like, you know what? Let's try to get through, because there's a big learning curve to it, which I understand. I don't have it. Not part of the budget yet, but there'll be a day that I'll dive into this. So first, let's start off with, of course, Garmin has Live Scope. Lowrance has his active target. Humminbird has Mega Live. This came out with Mega Live 2. And there's a lot to say about that. What FFS do you run?
I use Live Scope LVS 34.
The 34. Okay, right on. Is there any reason that you pick that in particular? Like, and when did you start using this?
I started using about 1.5 years ago. And I had the LVS 32, but it broke, so I was like, might as well upgrade.
What do you mean it broke?
It just quit working. I don't know what happened to it.
Was it under warranty? You get it warrantied out?
No, I just like, whatever. I'll just get a new one.
I love it. Okay. Any reason you chose Garmin over Humminbird or Lowrance?
I already had a couple Garmin graphs before I got the graph that I use Live Scope with. So I like the brand. It's held up good for the most part. So
okay. All right. So you have the LVS 30. Well, you said you had both 34. So you had 32 and there's 34. Any noticeable difference in your opinion from the 32 to the 34? Now, obviously you didn't have them both working side by side, but were you like, hey, after using the 32, upgrading to the 34, okay, there was a noticeable difference and this is what it was?
Yeah, there's definitely a clearer image as far as being able to tell the size of fish and the definition and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it really as far as difference.
Okay, right on. Fishing with Gramps because Garmin rules. That's why. I got a Garmin. I like it. The graph I have, which this will probably be the unit I get into, is Garmin, because I have a UHD 92 SV, and it's ready to go. All I got to do is plug in the old transducer. However, even the LVS 32s are still, 14, 1300. I imagine they'll continue to go down, but either that or I might get into the Lowrance Eagle Eye 9. I know my buddy's getting into that. Obviously, it's freaking 13 degrees here in Northeast Ohio, so we haven't had a chance to test it out. I'm starting to see some videos come online of guys and girls who did receive it and are starting to utilize it. So I'm really curious. I think that'll be a great entry level forward-facing unit for kayakers specifically. So still a lot to be said on that. We will think. I'll continue. I'm going to try to get my hands on that unit when he's not using it to see what we got going on. I got young baby child asking me a question. Ask Dalton about the time he slept on the floor of my dock while fishing. What is?
Yeah,
we got to go there. We can bunny trail.
Yeah, that's one of my friends I've known for a long time. He has a house on a lake in Orlando, and I slept on the dock so I could get out earlier.
Nice. That's the dedication, folks. I'm a little jealous of the Florida year-round fishing. So, I mean, when you're in class right now, is all you're thinking about is fishing? Like, hey, I can't wait to get out of class so I can hop in and go. How often do you fish a week?
It varies. I'll try to go as much as I can, but I'd say not like with class, probably 3 or 4 times a week. Probably 3 is realistic.
All right. So, I mean, this is fascinating to me because one of the main things I hear when it comes to forward-facing sonar, there's a lot of positive and there's some negatives. We're going to get to those as well. But one of the biggest things I hear is it's not just like, hey, you go throw this thing on your boat or your kayak and you automatically just start catching donkeys. And so it's interesting to me to hear that you said you had it for a year and a half, but it sounds like you've had a lot of success with it. So out of those top 8 fish that I just showed, I mean, those are all double digits, right? What was the weight? Do you have the weight on?
The 2 biggest ones are both right at 11 pounds.
11 pounds.
Yeah.
Whew. Were all those caught on utilizing sonar?
Yeah, all the biggest ones I've caught like the past year and a half have all been with that. That's all I do pretty much nowadays for the most part.
Okay. I mean, this deep water, or you got the thing on perspective mode going up in the shallows?
Mostly deep water stuff. Haven't used the perspective yet. I know it's good for targeting bedfish and stuff like that, but
yeah,
I haven't gotten into it yet.
Yeah, I got a buddy, and I fished the knucklehead with him this past year. His name's Seth, and I think he just got first down in Florida. Really great guy, and he says one of the like sleeper modes on this thing is perspective. He's like, I use perspective all the time, and he has it rigged up on his kayak where he just has a nice manual adjustments for it, and he's like, I am seeing bass in shallow water using perspective mode. He's like, don't tell anybody. I just told the world just now. But nonetheless, it's really working for him. But most individuals who have it, that's not how they use it. They use it to go out in the deep water, right? And so, interesting. Okay, so you caught all the giants. So what was life like? I'm curious. What was life like for you, fishing life and success of fishing life prior to forward facing? And then how did it drastically change post purchasing this unit?
I'd say when I started getting good at it, at like consistently catching bass, was in the start of 2022.
Okay.
And my personal best was actually caught out of that Sun Dolphin kayak, which is kind of funny. It was 12 pounds 10 ounces. So it's not.
Oh wow!
It's not like I'm like completely dependent on it. I know how to catch them if I really needed to without it, but it's just so much more efficient with it. But yeah, without it, I was doing a lot of just beating the bank,
Yeah,
and just dialing in based. It was a lot more dependent on conditions back then.
Okay.
By understanding the weather and everything.
All right, I like it. I like. I personally like. I still depend on that stuff to some degree. I started utilizing my side scan, side view on Garmin this past year, and it changed the game for me. Right, I typically wouldn't go out into deeper water because I'd be blind casting against what maybe I thought was a brush pile or a rock pile, whatever it is, or a giant underwater tree or whatever it was. And it wasn't until I had side scan to really, and I couldn't see fish with side scan, but I could definitely see the structure. And I was like, okay, where the structure is, that's where the fish are going to be. And it changed the game for me this past year, fishing deeper water. And for me, I just mean maybe not even deeper water. It was water that was maybe 5 to 7 feet, but it was in the middle of the lake. And I typically had no real reason to go out there because I didn't know what was down there without electronics. And so I would beat up the bank, and I had a lot of fun and success beating up the bank. It's a lot of fun too. However, that's where the majority of people are going to be going. So there's a lot of bass out there who are not just sitting up on the structure, but what forward-facing sonar is allowing people to do is find those bass that are not on the structure that you typically wouldn't find. They're out there roaming, and they're freaking giants, and they don't get caught that often. And that's the juice behind FFS. All right, so if you got a question for Dalton as we cruise through here, go ahead and throw that up. Make sure you write in like big letters the question so I can identify it, because sometimes the chat on the side here just kind of starts flying. So let's hop into this. Couple questions. So you typically just use forward mode, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, on a kayak. How do you have that all hooked up?
I have a Yak Attack transducer mount, and I have it to the right of me.
Okay.
On the tracks, and then to the left I have the transducer mount, I have the graph mount to the right of me, and then the transducer mount on the left with the fishing specialties. I don't know what it's called, whatever they call it, the forward-facing sonar mount.
Okay. Do you like that mount? Does it give you the dexterity and the adjustments that you need, or do you wish it did something? Yeah. Okay, right on.
It squeaks sometimes, but that's about it.
Well, that could be irritating.
Yeah.
But if it squeaks, if it actually spooks fish now. So I mean, this is what's so fascinating to me about it. And this is why I want to get into it eventually, whenever the budget allows, is that I was just talking to Red. We had a 2-hour conversation last, I think it was Friday night, and we got into all kinds of stuff. It was a lot of fun. But nonetheless, the reason I want it is I want to better understand bass behavior. And, we hear, you got to be in a kayak, you got to be stealthy, you got to be quiet. I mean, do you? It'd be nice to be able to see. You're like, okay, I'm making noise here and the bass aren't moving and they're 10 feet in front of me. And so how much of all these tips and tricks that we've been hearing on YouTube and all over the place, and people repeat them, are actually true? How are fish responding to this particular lure? How are they, what might feel like a massive hit is actually not a massive hit. And when you're able to see that in real time and in relation to your bait you're throwing, I am sure it's changed the game. And so that's, I want it as a learning. So what are some of those things, being that we're talking about this right now, that you were like pre-sonar? Wow, I didn't understand I didn't realize that was what was happening underneath the water. And maybe it was a particular lure that you're throwing, or maybe it was just a typical a bass behavior that you identified. What are some of those that stand out for you?
So the very first thing I noticed using it, I use a lot of Texas rig worms and stuff. I never realized how far off the bottom my worm was going.
Okay.
When so that was the first thing I realized. Like, I thought I've been dragging, close to the bottom where it's just barely going up, but it's going like 4 or 5 feet off the bottom. I was like, oh, I got to fix that. So that's the first thing. And another thing you realize is like how many fish actually chase your bait and don't eat it. Because like when I'm targeting big fish, it's like probably like less than 5% of them actually bite,
Interesting.
So it's just like a ton of them are interested and check it out, but very few actually are willing to bite. And that all dependent on conditions like fishing pressure, all that stuff kind of is what controls that. It's also I think it's an individual fish thing too, just like how they are really. Because some of them, you'll throw a Texas rig on top of their head, they'll come up and grab it, and other ones you got to work them and like to barely get any reaction out of them.
Interesting. So there's no like hard and fast rule, right? I was fishing with my buddy Seth. He's like, hey, what I found out typically fishing the jerkbait is if you throw it out as far as you can actually move that a little bit slower. But as you get closer to your boat, you want to speed that up. And that's typically what we found with the jerkbait, because he's actually watching them chase. And typically, if he speeds it up, if he gets closer to the boat, he'll actually get more bites doing that. But that was just particular with the jerkbait. So you're saying, okay.
Yeah, it's every lure, really.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's just nuance.
It makes it so much easier to, when you know a fish is there, actually get it to bite, because you can change your cadence with whatever lure based on how it's behaving towards it. And you know whether or not even cares at all about the lure, whether to switch to something else, throw something else at it.
Interesting. What's your favorite or most effective lure that you utilize? Because everyone's like, oh yeah, the jighead minnow. Typically, that's
I don't use that at all.
See,
I hate that lure personally.
Really?
Yeah, it does not work at all for me. I don't know why.
Interesting. So you don't even use it. That's the typical.
No, I don't. I never use it.
Jerkbait.
I'm sure it's something I'm doing wrong, because it works, but
I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I saw your list of fish you caught last year. There's I don't know. There's too many other people. I mean, there might be people who caught maybe a larger fish than you, but you were always at the top of the leaderboards. Holy crap! You probably destroyed. Nobody's entering the Florida KBF monthly challenge. They see your name rolling through. I know. I'd think twice. That's for damn sure.
I usually wait till the very end of the month to register, just in case it matters at all.
You do, or anybody else?
Just in case, yeah. If people are seeing, if I submit it or enter like a week before the month ends, people might see it.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow. So what are the lures then? So you don't use the jighead minnow, right? Typically a jerkbait. A lot of people like utilizing that, right?
I like using jerkbaits.
Okay. Any particular jerkbait?
I use mega bass mostly.
The most expensive jerkbait on the market? That one?
Yeah. I use the Vision 110+1 Junior for the most part.
Those are your go-tos.
And I've recently been using a Mega Bass Canada. It's called. It's like a 6-inch jerkbait, and that works pretty good too, depending on the conditions.
And those are typically you don't really vary from those.
No, as far as jerkbaits, that's it.
So you got your Visions, and then this Canada.
Yeah.
What do you like about them that's so different than all the other everything else out in the market?
They just work. I don't know. I don't really experiment a lot with. Well, I guess I do, but for the most part, those are the ones that I use. Another one is those 6 cents, the silent jerkbaits. I'll use those sometimes too.
Okay.
But
I don't know if I saw that.
Just in case the sound's a little too much for them, I like to have a silent one too.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, that's it for jerkbaits.
You're cracking me up. You're a lot more minimalist than I thought you would be before I came into this conversation. You're like, hey,
there is stuff I get really deep in. It's just that when it comes to Texas rigs and stuff like that, I'll try a million different things. But for certain things, I don't want to do too much with it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, a jerkbait, a lot of times it's a jerkbait. I mean, I like the Stunnas. I just picked up a few 6 cents off of Walmart. Was doing a clearance on 6 cents, which is, I heard, kind of unbelievable. Doesn't really happen. So I don't know what's happening there. Maybe everything, their hooks and everything. And they're selling Provokes for $2. And so someone came in before me and wiped them all out. So I had to go walk around all the aisles to see if anybody dropped some, in places they shouldn't be, because Walmart's a freaking organizational mess. So I found some in the clearance aisle. I found a couple others laying around where they shouldn't be. So I just picked up some of those. So I look forward to throwing those, but I'm not typically a jerkbait angler. And I was sharing on the show, I think it was I don't know. Either I was on somebody else's show or I was sharing this show when I went down Lake Guntersville for the Knucklehead tournament. It's jerkbaits is simply what was hitting. And unfortunately, I let my jerkbait specific rod at home. I didn't even bring it with me. And so I was using a non-jerkbait rod, and I was so freaking tired by the end of that tournament. But I caught over 100 bass on the jerkbait. I was like, all right, maybe I need to dial this thing in, because I know it works. It just hasn't been one of those baits. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get out there and throw it outside of the spring. And so, yeah, it should be interesting. Okay. I'm gonna have to take a look at those lures. They seem to work for you. Any of the top 7 fish that I showed earlier in the show, you catch on jerkbait, or were they?
Yeah, a few of them I did. Yeah,
A few of them. What was your number one?
One of the 25 inches, or I got 25 inches on a jerkbait actually.
Okay. Oh gosh, that would have been a freaking ride.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially in your Sun Dolphin, that would have been a sleigh ride right there alone.
Oh yeah.
Ruben Cooler Lid said a comment. Hey, it's almost impossible to find silent jerk baits. So what was that bait one more time? The Kanata from
6 cents.
Six Cents.
That's just the big jerk bait that has sound to it. But the silent one is the 6 cents per vote. They have like a silent version they came out with somewhat recently.
Okay. Hey, if you're looking for one, there it is. Cody Strotter said smoked them on the Credge last time I was out.
Oh, the Credge is good too. I like that.
Okay. Creek Crawler. Where the heck is this dude fishing where you can get 120 plus inches? You fish private or public? I know it's public because you're posting them on KBF.
I've fished private water 3 times ever, and it was back when I was in high school. I had a friend that lived in like a gated community.
Okay.
So I went out there a few times with him before, but that's it.
That's it. You're finding these in public waters. Now, obviously, I'm not going to ask you where, but I will ask the question. I mean, are these places where you're utilizing your kayak advantage to your advantage, or is this like, hey, you're just finding them, other boats are running over them, and you're just getting in there because you figured out the pattern?
It's both. There's a few spots out there kind of sneaky you can't really get a boat into, but the majority of the places that like I fish at a lot are like bigger public waters that, at least for the area, are fairly well known.
Okay, so you're on big lakes then. I mean, how many acres are we talking about?
One of them, the big lake I fish at the most, I think, is 3,500 acres.
Okay. Gosh.
I'll say this one place, Orange and Loch Lusa Lake. You know, I've only been out there a few times, but the biggest I've got out there was a little under 11 pounds.
Wow.
So that place isn't really a secret though or anything.
I like it. Man, I come to Florida, I'm definitely going to be calling you up. I've never caught a double digit in my life. Obviously, it's on the bucket list. I live in Ohio. Mm-hmm. You can come across them, but not very often. It's a special once in a lifetime fish up here in Ohio, but not for you. My goodness, I love it.
I've gotten 8 double digits ever.
8.
Yeah. Wow. And I've gotten, I think, 30 something over 8 pounds.
30 over 8. My goodness. I love it. So do you deal with wildlife a lot down where you at? Because I know a lot of times people down in Florida and everyone's like, hey, I do kayak fishing, but nope, because of all the extracurricular wildlife they don't want to deal with, or they're afraid of it. Maybe not, maybe for good reason. Maybe they had a history, or maybe they're just afraid of it.
I've never had any issues. It's mostly like everyone's scared of the alligators, but they're more scared of you. Whenever you get near them, they just sink down and wait for you to leave, and they come back up.
That's what most people are freaked out when they go down. They don't know what they're doing. So those things are freaking fast under the water if they need to be.
Oh yeah.
All right. So you have
sometimes on live scope.
Oh, do you for real?
Yeah, just hanging around on just suspended out there.
I mean, does it straight up look like an alligator on your live scope? Like, oh yeah, definitely.
Not always. Sometimes it looks like a group of fish, but once you see it moving, you can see like its body and the tail moving. It's pretty cool.
Oh my gosh, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Do you video or anything, or do you just go out there and have a good time?
An action camera. I've been using some. I just have the clips. I haven't done anything with them. I want to make a YouTube channel, but I just haven't done it yet.
Welcome to the dark side. Yeah, you realize, oh man, I edit more than I go fish, and then you probably like, no, I'm done with that.
Yeah, that's a big reason I don't really want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you caught that freaking gator flying through your live scope, I guarantee you that would go. YouTube would send that one. My goodness. All right, so let's hop into this. You run a live scope. You have the 34. Would you say, and this is one of the things that people are worried about getting into it, and being that this is kind of like, okay, you're thinking about getting into it. A lot of people are worried that's going to ruin it for them, right? It's going to ruin the fun of fishing. You're glued to a screen, and I think it depends on the angler of how much you use it, and you use it as a tool or you completely rely on it. For you though, I'm asking you the question: did it ruin the fun, or did it make it more fun?
I think it made it more fun because now it's like a lot easier, or I wouldn't say easier, but more efficient to target like the biggest ones out there. Because it's like a lot of the biggest fish in the lake are all just, they're smart and they just hang out like in random places usually. So it's really the only way to like effectively target them.
So you
Other than
said
like the spawn, that's the only time you can catch them.
so you said random places. All right, so that threw a flag for me. So you're saying they're not in the typical places, right? Most all
Well,
the
it's
tips, all
not
the
always
tricks
like
are going to be telling you, hey, they're next to structure. Hey, they're doing this. Hey, they're going to be here during this time of the year, during this type of spawning period. Are you just saying that a lot of the big ones are just randomly not in typical places that they're supposed to be?
outside of like the spawning time, I'd say so. Because like pre-spawn to post-spawn, that's usually when I'm targeting like offshore grass lines and things like and isolated structure and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And summertime is when you'll see them more around like the offshore isolated structure and things. But year round, you can find a random big one just cruising around.
Do you have to go? Do you like accidentally come across those, or you actually just go scanning for them?
Usually, if all the stuff I was planning on doing doesn't work, I'll just say screw it and I'll just go around randomly, try to find a random big one. But that's not what I usually do. I usually try to figure out some sort of pattern, things like that.
Okay, so you're still utilizing the old school methods with
Yeah.
and okay, yeah. I mean, I think the diversification of that skill set, obviously, it's doing well for you. All right,
Mm-hmm.
so walk us through what you would say if someone asks you the question and they're thinking about getting into it. What are the advantages and disadvantages of utilizing it?
A big advantage is obviously you can see what's going on if you're offshore. One disadvantage would be, I think when like you'll miss a lot of fish in Florida because a lot of times they'll be up in the grass, and
Okay.
if you're looking for fish and you aren't just like blind casting in the grass, you're gonna be missing all those fish. That's one issue I have. Sometimes I find myself just scanning around for fish, but there's this grass line that the fish are all up in, and it's like if I was throwing over top of it, I know they'd be coming out to get it, and like you wouldn't be able to see them on the scope because of how dense the grass is sometimes.
Okay. So that's advantage. Obviously, an advantage, you can see what's happening underwater. Disadvantage, would you say that you spend too much time? That you ever find yourself being like, oh man, I spent 30 minutes on the fish and it's just not biting?
Oh yeah, there's been times where I've probably spent like there will be a big fish staging. I'll spend like 4 or 5 hours trying to get it to
But
bite.
whoa! 4 or 5 hours on
I mean,
one.
when it's like when it's definitely a double digit. It's like bed fishing, when they're like if they're staged up on an offshore stump, and they're there, it's kind of hard to go away from them.
What is
Which
the
it's probably not good. The more you throw at them, the more they aren't gonna bite usually. So
well, you're hoping you irritate them, but that's not going to be the
that has happened before. But from my experience, if you don't get them to bite on the very first cast, your odds of catching them go way, way down because that
interesting.
second cast is like they might check it out some of like whatever, and so usually you have to leave them alone for a little bit, let them forget, I guess, then start messing with them again,
Okay.
or change up the bait to something you'll think they might be more interested in.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So if you don't get hit on the first, you're noticing, okay, you can still throw it, but it gets more and more less likely as you continue.
Yeah, they start losing interest in it pretty quick.
Fascinating.
Like a few days ago, I caught a 7, and the first thing I think I threw at it was a wacky rig, and it came right up. Check it out. For whatever reason, didn't bite it, but it came right up to it and kept going. Then I threw, I think, a Ned rig, and it went down to the bottom. Check it out, but then kept going. Then it stopped caring about that. And I think then I threw I have a big 11-inch buka based trick shad I threw, and it got spooked by that. So then
Really spooked it. Too big.
yeah,
Or
it's
too
a
loud.
gizzard shad lake too, so you think you'd want it, but I don't know. But then I threw an Alabama rig way past it, let it sink down, then worked it, and it came right up and ate that. So,
Oh, really? All right.
yeah.
So you're just rotating. How many rods and reels do you have set up?
When I go out, I usually bring 6 to 8 poles.
Okay. Okay. Creek, you kind of answered this, but I'm going to ask it again. The creek caller asked, does Dalton have a bait lineup when he's targeting a single fish? You just shared your bait lineup for that particular fish that happened this past
Mm-hmm.
week, but do you have a rhythm? You're like, hey, first I hit him with this, then I hit him with this, then I hit him with this, and then 8 hours
Usually,
later, you give up?
whatever is working is what I'll start off with, or whatever's working for the day, I'll start off with. So let's say, for example, I'm throwing a Ned rig to start. I'll start with that. If they don't care, then maybe I'll throw something like a wacky rig or a jerk bait, see what happens. And if nothing's working, the last thing I usually throw at them is either the Alabama rig, which I only throw the Alabama rig from like December to March. That's when it usually works the best for me. But then if that doesn't work, I'll throw some sort of glide bait. And if it doesn't care about that, I'll stop messing with it.
All right. After 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
All right.
That's not
So
how it usually goes. But
walk
usually
me
they're
through.
on stage up like
Right.
that. But
Walk
yeah.
me through. You're going to a new lake. Like, okay, here we go. I'm a new lake. I got FFS. I got 8 rods. Walk us through the process of what's the first thing you do all the way to the catch, and you're targeting bigs.
The first thing I look for is what like the vegetation sets up like, and whether there's like a good grass line, because I love fishing grass lines for big fish. Obviously big fish like unique things, and so it's like I'll go along the grass line, try to find the unique thing, whether that's like a cut or a point, or there's some other type of little patch of grass along that type of grass. For example, there's just one little lake I fish at some. There's like a ring of lily pads around it.
Okay.
But then there's this other, it's like a stringy thing that'll like mound up in some spots. And there's just one particular little like mound of it where a few big fish usually hang around. So that's like the spot I know, like out of all this, that's the main area I gotta kind of target. Because like what if because of that little thing of grass, for whatever reason, the bigger ones like to hang around it more. So like that particular zone is where I'll focus most time too.
No method to the madness outside of you over time keep slanging it on that particular unique mat of grass.
Yeah, usually I'll try to see if I can see them, like like around it. If not, then I'll work something over to see if I can pull one up out of it.
Now, are these grass lines like visible or are they underwater? Like how are you identifying these? What's your setup like down there in Florida?
It depends. It depends on the time of year and everything. Sometimes it's matted up way thick over on the surface. Sometimes it's below it and you're able to throw stuff over top of the grass. It just depends.
Okay. So you're on a grass line. What's the first lure you're throwing? Are you running a big swim bait next to it, or?
It's seasonal, really. Like this time of year, I'm mostly throwing an Alabama rig, a jerk bait, and then some sort of finesse bait, whether that's a Ned rig or like a jig or a wacky rig, something like that.
What's the water temperatures and stuff where you guys are at?
The last time I went out, it was really cold. I started off 51 and it worked its way up to like 53.
Really cold. Everyone up here in Ohio is like, bro, that's like a sunny day with shorts and a t-shirt. 51. All right.
It was a low of 30 that day though. So for Florida, that's like insane.
It's freezing for you guys down there. All right, if you got a question specifically for Dalton, go ahead and throw that in. All right, so you already mentioned it's efficient, right? And so if you're the angler out there and you're like, hey, you have days where you're like, oh, I have sweet days, awesome, get out there, you catch them, and then you go 3 or 4 days, you're like, crap, didn't catch anything, and you're just intermittent, right? FFS might be for you because you've said it now 5 times, I believe. You're like, I'm just more efficient. And by efficient, you mean efficient with your time. You get on them quicker, faster.
Yeah.
You catch them more and larger.
Without it, it's like you could be doing everything right and the fish just might not be there. And then with scope, you're able to know whether or not you're wasting your time fishing an area.
Yeah.
So it eliminates a lot of the dead water a lot quicker.
There it is. I was fishing with Seth from the Knucklehead, and we went to this. We were doing the pre-fishing thing, so we went to this area, and he was on them the day before, but we were just trying to find out more areas. And we were in about an hour, and I was like, "How many fish have you seen today versus yesterday?" He's probably 10x less. I was like, "What are we doing right now?" He's like, "Yeah, you're right." So we literally turned our kayaks around and went over to the other place where they were, and so we probably would have spent the rest of the day goofing around trying to find him in a place that was dead water, and saved a lot of time. And so, man, it's hard to turn that offer down, right? I could be more efficient on the water. I can know whether I'm fishing dead water or not. I mean, that's one of the biggest advantages outside of being able to see underneath the water is just the efficiency of your time. If you're a guy that only gets out there, weekend warrior, maybe 2-3 times a month, and it's one of those catch-22s. You're like, oh, I have this massive expense for 2-3 times a month. It depends how much you love fishing, right? You might be like, hey, when I'm out there, I definitely want to catch them. I want to catch them big, and money's not an issue for you. This might be the upgrade for your future. I like it. So another advantage, obviously, is targeting suspended fish. Do you do that a lot, or are you usually fishing off the bottom?
I'd say I do both.
Okay.
It just depends on the situation.
Yeah. So you got that offshore fishing. Do you find it distracting?
In what way?
A lot of people are like, oh, you're just kind of glued to a screen all day. Is that what you're doing? Or are you literally you're reading the lay and you're using it as a tool? I imagine it depends on the angler.
Yeah, if it's a place I know really well, then I just have my head glued. But if it's a newer place, I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So here's a question. This is one of the biggest things people tell me is just because you have the unit doesn't mean, and you have it plugged in and you're going out there. There's a learning curve. Sounds like you dialed that in pretty freaking fast. You've had it now for a year and a half.
3 months to really dial it in, I'd say.
Man, I've been hearing people like, oh, I've had it for a year and a half, and I still don't know what the crap I'm looking at. So walk us through some of you get the unit. People can get, how could you get very frustrated really fast, right? How do you know what the difference between a bass versus a carp versus a gar versus a school of, crappie versus an alligator?
I was throwing a lot of gar in the beginning, that's for sure.
So, I mean, how do you dial that in, right? That could be incredibly, I imagine, incredibly frustrating. Like, crap, I got this unit, now I'm seeing everything, and it's a little overwhelming, and I'm trying to target bass.
So the gar, you usually see them. You'll see them sitting there, and then when you work it over them, they'll just return into like this big long thing, fall on it.
All right.
And then the bass usually are more, like circular blob type thing. And I've gotten really good at figuring out like the size of it based on how it looks. Usually the big ones, there's like a gap between like its head and tail. There's like this like a space, and depending on how big the two blobs are and how big of a gap, that's kind of how big the fish is.
So you do it through just looking at the actual fish, because I know some guys are like, oh, I'm taking into relation of the grids, and they can tell that if it's in one of those square blocks, depending on how big it is against the block, which is 5 feet, they can tell you how big it is. You're saying you use a different measure.
I usually have it set to 15 feet majority of the time, so I've gotten used to that. But whenever I'm fishing a deeper place where I have to make it deeper, that's usually when I kind of it makes it harder for me to tell how big it is because of how used I am to the certain depth and seeing them as a certain size.
Okay.
But yeah, I've never really thought about the grids. I'll have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. So I mean, then you got carp, right? Carp and bass, when it comes to shape, it's probably going to be pretty.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same. One time, I saw this huge one. I thought it was a giant bass. It wound up being a koi fish as it came up. I just saw a big orange thing come up.
You ever spent a couple hours on a carp or a koi fish before?
No, not really. But because usually they'll get spooked a lot easier than a bass would. But sometimes there's been things I didn't realize they were bass, but they wound up being bass. So you never know. Turtles can be hard to tell too, but I've kind of figured out what a turtle looks like too.
So it's just
they're
time.
Usually yeah. They're usually like a big thing, and then when you start to see them swim, you can see their little head and stuff.
Okay.
So that's kind of, yeah.
It's so wild. What's the wildest thing outside of alligators that you've seen under the water from this thing?
Manatees. I've seen manatees before.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've seen one time I was saltwater fishing and a dolphin came by. I could see it on the scope too.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. That's wild. All right. Creek crawlers. I hit a big bass, follow manatees. Interesting. How do you get that manatee bite? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
They're like protected down there. Here's a
Mm-hmm.
question for you. Creek crawler asked, where is it at? What is Dalton's best day on the water?
Like the best day I've ever had.
Yeah, the best day. I think that's what he meant. Best day
For
you've ever
weight,
had.
the biggest five was 32, and then for length, this was a different day from that one. But the biggest for length was 116.5,
One
and
day.
that was without live scope. That was just fishing along the grass line without scope.
Yeah, because you're not taking your scope. You can still fish
No,
the
this was
grass
like
line, still
before.
do all the things.
Yeah, that was back before I had scope when I had got the 116.5.
Oh, so your best day is not scoping.
Yep.
All right.
That I had side imaging, but I wasn't using. I was just using my map to kind of tell where the contours of the grass line are, because I've been through that area so many times. I could, like the grid from where you've been over. I was just going along that, so I knew where to cast.
Right. Oh, wow. All right. Those are some, man, I need to get down there. I do. There's a dream of mine is to go full time doing this thing. Then when I do, I just want to travel the country, linking up with the guys who have been and girls who have been on the show and just going out and fishing together. I think that would just be just incredible. So learning curve. How many hours would you say that it took you to really dial in? Okay, I know what I'm looking at now. I know that's a manatee. I know that's an alligator. I know that's a bass. I know that's a carp. I know that's a gar. I can use this with the best of them. How many hours would you say that you have taken and put into using to get to that point?
To get to the point to where I know what I'm doing with it.
Proficiency. Yeah, proficiency.
Yeah,
Not
like
master,
said,
like proficiency.
It took about 3 or 4 months, and I usually fish like 10 to 15 times a month, I'd say. And then my days on the water are usually 8 to 10 hours. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, whatever that comes out to.
All right, there it is. So when you go out, you're like, hey, I'm going full day.
Yeah,
I'm not this after
I don't
work
go
stuff.
if I can only go for like a few hours. Like,
okay, so
I want to be able to be out there and dial it in.
And you're comfortable in the Native Slayer 10 for 8-12 hours?
Yeah. I wasn't very comfortable in the Sun Dolphin for that.
No. Oh, you went 8 hours in the Sun Dolphin?
I mean, I've gone fishing for like 16 hours in a day before. It's not.
Wow.
It just depends on whether or not the place I'm fishing is worth fishing that long.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of places are worth fishing that long in a Sun Dolphin. That thing, maybe when I was younger, 22 years old, I could probably rock it out for as long as I needed to. But man, as I get older, that thing, I can stay in it for a few hours. I need to stand up and I need to, oh my gosh, Sun Dolphin. Yeah, Creek Carlos, like my back just started burning hearing that. I hear you, brother. I hear you. Charlie's, here's some comments. I don't have an insane amount of money to spend on fishing, but the Vision 110s are great. And I think they work a lot better than other jerk baits. Solid. All right. Keep a question. If you have any questions or comments, keep them coming. We're coming down to the end of our show here. A couple more questions for Dalton. What is your favorite? This is kind of outside of scoping. What's your go-to confidence lure that you're like, you know what, out of the 22 bass over 24 inches, what were the majority? Top 3 baits that caught all of those?
I have to say a jerk bait.
Okay. The Visions?
Yep. And then a Senko of some kind, like whether Texas rigged or wacky rigged.
All right.
Well, Texas rigged worms in general, really, like not just Senkos, but and then a Ned rig. I love throwing a Ned rig. I know a lot of people don't, but it works.
Obviously, it works for you. You're catching 7, 8, 9 pound bass on a Ned rig.
Mm-hmm.
You have to finesse those bad boys. That
My
wire gauge
biggest
isn't
bass
very.
on a Ned rig was 10 pounds, 5 ounces.
Oh, jeez. The wire gauge on a Ned rig isn't a whole lot. You have to finesse that bad boy for a while.
I forget which ones I use, but I use the thicker wire one.
Okay. I think the doesn't Z-Man makes thicker wire, some nicer ones.
Yeah, I forget what they're called, but yeah.
Oh my gosh. Creek Crawler asked the question: would Dalton consider fishing a national trail, seeing as how many of them do visit Florida? Do you do anything outside of what are all the tournaments that you are a part of?
Pretty much everything on Fishing Chaos, where it's like the month long or whatever. Like, I don't do a lot of the like weekend ones or like the trail types. There is one in May I'm gonna do though at a lake near where I live. But yeah, I just don't really like to travel really far. That's the main reason why I don't do the trail stuff.
Okay. Now I gotta ask. I mean, obviously successful. Sounds like you can go out on a lot of different lakes and be successful. Any desire to do this full time?
Oh yeah, I'd like to. Once I'm out of college, I'll start figuring out, actually doing it. But yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah, could be a future. I mean, I wish I started when I was 22. That'd be freaking. If I could go back in time, that'd be great. But, man, I think you got the chops for it. I think you could have a lot of success in it. So this is great. Yeah, Gramps, great point. Hey, why travel to catch smaller fish? 100%.
Yeah.
Why stay in Florida, down there in the South? For sure. I mean, so this is something you're like, hey, I could do this. I could be a professional angler. Would you stay within the kayak realm, or could you see yourself venturing into boats?
I could see myself getting into the boat stuff in the future. It's just a lot easier and a lot less money with the kayak stuff.
Yeah. So. Yeah, makes sense.
Especially like a bass boat these days.
I like it. All right, let's see if I have any questions here. Here we go. Settings. Are there any type of settings that you like to adjust on your forward facing? You're like, hey, I do this all the time. And it's kind of like, what are some of the secrets? Or do you just freaking plug this thing in and you just go keep it the same typically all the time? Are you adjusting and tweaking it as you go to fit your needs? And when would you do that?
The only thing I really change is what the depth is set at. And sometimes I'll change the distance depending on like whether I'm searching for fish and stuff like that. But that's the only stuff I change. For as far as like how much like water I like to show like a little bit of the bottom. I know some people should like have it to where like the water's only in like the top third of the screen. I don't know why they do that. I just feel like it lets me see stuff a lot easier. Using the whole screen.
Yeah.
And as far as the gain, I usually have that set at 70%. That's like I feel like a good spot for it as far as like showing enough.
Okay. So you set it manually to 70. You don't auto.
Yeah, it just stays at 70.
Okay. I like it.
I don't do auto for depth either. I manually change that. I don't like the auto setting.
Here's a couple questions for you. Do you ever turn it off?
Yeah, whenever I'm doing shallow stuff, I will.
Okay.
But yeah, like during the summer and fall, obviously a lot of good punching and frogging stuff to do. So
okay, so you don't give up on some of the.
No, there's always some sort of shallow bite in Florida. You just gotta. It's just whether or not it's better than what you could do scoping. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like the dead of summer is like the worst time of year for scoping in a lot of the places I fish at.
How deep is the water where you're fishing?
There's some of them are like there's a big river I fish that has a lot of lakes that connect to it, and so the depth changes a lot. But for the most part, I'm fishing in like 8 to 12 foot, I'd say, as far as I went up scoping.
Interesting. Any deeper than that typically, or that's just your average?
That's just the average. Sometimes, like I was out at a place where I would have it would be like 40 feet of water sometimes. So I was out there a few days ago. So it just depends on the body of water.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Let me see here. I gotta go over here in the questions. Blah blah blah. Your question. Sure. I'm not getting any questions here. Not that I see. All right. One of the final questions I have for you. So what screen size do you have? What graph are you running this?
I have I think it's called the EchoMap Ultra 106 SV.
Okay, so you got 10-inch graph.
Yeah.
You plan on
I think
upgrading
that's
your unit at all?
I think the 10-inch is a good size for a kayak because a lot, the bass people have like the 16-inch ones and stuff because they're standing up looking over. I feel like it's a lot closer to you than the
Yeah.
kayak, so that's kind of unnecessary.
Okay. Do you run just that, or do you use it in conjunction? Do you run in side scan on another graph, or do you go in one
All
run?
I have is lab scope. I feel like that's all I need. A lot less weight to carry around and everything.
All right. Would you consider yourself a minimalist? I mean, you have 8 rods, and but I mean, is your kayak
try to
tricked out
be,
with everything, or you try to
not
keep it
everything.
dialed in?
I try to keep it as little as possible, but some things if I think I need to try as much as possible, like for a certain lure, for example, I'll do it. Like whatever's going to maximize my results, I try to do.
Ah, well, man, it's been fun. I mean, every time I talk to someone about forward facing sonar, it's one of those things I'm like, okay, I just need to pull the trigger. I need to find a deal. That's what I need to find, and I'll do it. It'll be fun. And once I do, throw some videos out there. It'll take me a season to dial it in. But I mean, who doesn't like being efficient with their time out in the water, especially as a content creator? I can't go out there and miss too often. So, I mean, I know how to catch them without it. It'd be fun to just, and I was talking to Red about this. He's like, you know what? I feel like a lot of what I'm doing now is just like small tweaks, small gains. I can learn a different lure. I can learn a different technique. I can do this, but I'm not gaining yards. And there's a few more things that I could do as an angler to gain yards to catch, larger and more bass more consistently. And I know what that is. And it's what we're talking about tonight. So you're right, Gramps. It's only money. But man, I am on, and typically it would, if I wasn't socking away an insane amount of cash right now, so I can go full time without risking, family. I would already have it. I'd be installing it right now and putting an install video together. So Gramps is like, my kids got it all for decades. It's my turn. I hear you, brother. I hear you. I'll get into it. I'll find someone. I've actually had people who are like, hey, I bought it. I don't use it like I thought I would. Maybe they don't like it. Maybe they don't like looking at the screen. Maybe they don't like the learning curve, or maybe they're tired of chasing manatees with it. Whatever it may be, I need to find that person who's like, you know what, Wendell, I'll give it to you on a fire sale, and then I'll be off to the races. But that time has not come yet. But maybe it will. Maybe it will. Well, Dalton, any other thoughts about it? Anything you're like, hey, I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but I want to. Now's the time.
One thing, I kind of mentioned it a little bit ago, but one disadvantage is how sometimes you're missing out on a good shallow bite, being stubborn, trying to scope, and like you could be doing a lot better just doing shallow stuff.
Yeah, and that's where it comes, knowing how to fish and not just going straight into this is the only thing I know. It's the only way I know how to catch fish.
Right.
It makes you a more well-rounded angler that you knew how to fish prior to just using it. So it's just a tool.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend someone just start off with that if they want to. Well, I guess if like they only fish sometimes, then it'd be good. But if you want to actually get as good as you can, then learn how to do normal stuff first before you do that.
Well, I appreciate your time coming on, sharing a little bit about your experience with it. If you're in Florida, I feel bad for you if you fish any of the KBF or any of the other tournaments that Dalton is in, because you got your work cut out for you, folks. You just do. Go check out those leaderboards. You'll see him up there, 122 inches. My goodness.
I think I've had 3 months over 122. I know I've had a lot over 120, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. This will be the final question. Everyone's like, he keeps on posting this. I have no clue what it means. I didn't want to say it because it's such a bizarre comment, but I'm going to go for it. It says, hey, ask Dalton about the time we got swarmed by fishing by little green animals, aka goblins. What in the world is he talking about?
I don't know. That's probably one of my friends messing with me.
All right, there you go. Sorry, Sly Fox. That is as weird as I thought it would be. Lavendi Lion said he wanted to know the answer to that too. Nonetheless, folks, thank you so much. Dalton, appreciate you. Really do. At 22
Thank
years
you for
old,
having me on, man.
I think you're having a lot of success, and I really look forward to seeing you grow, and I hope your dreams come true with making this a full-time gig post-college. What are you studying right now?
I'm working on my biology bachelor's degree, so I still have about a year left.
Any specialization in biology? Like you want to be
I'd like to. It's just a biology degree. I just go to a community college. So they don't really have any like in-depth degrees really, but
okay.
I like to use it for working in the field of marine biology. Eventually,
Okay.
if like the professional fishing doesn't work out,
So like a wildlife biologist kind of type of deal is what you're kind of potentially looking into.
Yeah.
Marine. All right, right on. Well, you know what? I think both of those would go hand in hand. And so I wish you the best. Thank you so much for your time, Dalton. Look forward to seeing you at the top of the leaderboards in years to come. Folks, thank you so much for chiming in. Hope you learned a little bit of something new. Maybe if you're thinking about getting into it, maybe some of the pros and the cons that come along with forward-facing sonar. And I have a ton of guests coming down the line. I got World's Worst Fishing, Bearded Paddler. I got just slated Drew Gregory to talk about the Kayak Adventure Series happening all over the country. And so stay tuned for that. Hope you guys have a great rest of the week. And I will see you next Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. on the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. You guys have a good one. Thanks, Dalton.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, man. You have a good one.
I had a good time.